Hey, hey, hey. So today I'm calling you in from a beautiful port town, a little beach town in Mexico on the west coast called Puerto Escondido. Magical, small, amazing water as you can see the waves behind me. There's actually 100 little like crabs near my feet, so I'm hoping they don't snip me while I'm talking to you guys. But today I wanted to give you a really powerful message, one that I was thinking about on my way, even walking to the beach today, and that is the three ways to really cope with rejection. And these are three simple tools that I would give you when you find yourself in a moment of rejection. Best way to be able to use these, the best way to be able to work with these is to actually take a journal or a book and to be able to write them down, to be able to write each point down so that you get closer to be able to understanding, okay, how can I work through this? How can I reduce the pain of rejection? Because we all know rejection can be tremendously painful. And we all know how much it can take out of us for days. We just feel crippled by the pain of rejection. And the reason that rejection is so painful is because it's still such an active core wound within us. So in the long term, working through rejection involves us going back to address our core wounds, to be able to see where the first time we felt really rejected and invalidated in our lives were when we were kids, to see how our inner child is really hurting and to be able to reparent that inner child, and by also committing to actions in the present moment. So a quicker way to do that, not to do that, but a quicker way to work with rejection in the moment is these three tools that I want to give you. So when you find yourself feeling rejected by something, whether someone's consciously rejected you or whether you're interpreting it as rejection, stop in that moment, or when you have time to reflect with yourself, because you probably will have time to reflect with yourself after the moment, and step into these three steps, okay? First step, how is the rejection? Notice, how is the rejection more about the other person's choice, preference, maybe their own conditioning and exposure, rather than you? That's the first really important step and the first really important tool. A lot of us don't really think about this or talk about it because in inner work we are always focusing on the self, which is tremendously important. It is absolutely important because when we heal the self, we can attract things completely different into our lives, right? From people rejecting us, validating us, supporting us, loving us, all of that stuff. So, however, that, like I said, is a larger piece of the puzzle that goes into healing and working through us. So a quick little fix or a quick little tip there is to say, okay, how is this rejection that I'm perceiving just simply someone else expressing their choice? The manner in which they express their choice, there's two things. The manner in which they express their choice can vary, and also how that choice makes us feel can vary based on the importance we put onto them, based on the attachment we put onto them. But if we were just to evaluate it simply, how could it really just be very much about them expressing their choice? Maybe in terms of a professional opinion. Maybe our boss, colleague, someone else in our space is telling us that, okay, I don't like the way this work has been done. I don't appreciate, the work that you're doing, etc. How can it just be about them expressing their opinion? Okay, taking it as feedback, as saying, okay, this is them expressing their choice, their opinion, their thought. It's based on their conditioning. Think about relationships. When someone says, hey, I don't think it's going to work out. Now, the reason it's really painful for us is because we desperately want it to work out with them, right? So it's basically about our attachment to them that makes the rejection so painful. But when you can view it as them saying, hey, I don't think this is going to work out, what if they're actually right? What if they're, by them expressing it, they're saying, hey, I'm just thinking that, maybe you're not the person for me, I'm not the person for you. And if we were able to think about it in that aspect, could it possibly save us a whole bunch of heartache, a whole bunch of investment of emotions, time, space that we'd put into this person and ultimately lead to an end anyway? So maybe they're stating a preference from their end, maybe they're saying something about, okay, this is just not going to work for me. Of course, very hard to take upon our chest because of our emotional investment in them or whatever it is that we're feeling rejection about. But it does not mean that makes it any more important or that it makes it any more valuable. It simply means that because we are investing in it constantly, because we are fixated on it, that we feel that pain. So what if we reduced that a little bit to say, okay, this is about them expressing their opinion, this is about them stating their preference, this is about them probably just telling us what may or may not work. Consider that. Journal about it, and it'll allow you to feel more feelings of acceptance. Acceptance is a massive piece because now you're accepting someone else's feelings. We often want to change them. We often want them to do what we want. We want them to choose us. We want them to be in a relationship with us. We want them to get married to us, have kids, blah, blah, blah. But if this is them stating their preference and you accept it when you're journaling, you're like, okay, maybe this is just not good for me either. Point number one. So step one is to notice, okay, how is it more about their expression of their preference, choice, etc. Step number two, this is another important one, is how can I make this feel a little less personal? How am I taking this to mean something about me? Now, the reason why that's important is because when you get that answer, you may still say, yeah, well, this still sucks. I know why it's hurting, but it still sucks. However, awareness is tremendously important in us creating change. Massively important. Because you are now shining a light on something. When you shine a light on something and you've seen it, even if you switch off the light, you can't unsee it. You've seen it. Wow, the waves are really coming at me. Hope I don't have to go on for too much longer. And the crabs with the waves. But the second point is, how am I taking this to mean something about me? Where is that coming from? So when you think about, again, we come back to rejection and someone says, oh, I'm sorry, I don't think I can, match with you in our lives. You're not focusing on the fact that, okay, maybe that's their preference, maybe you were not in the right place. You're taking it to mean, I am less valuable than that person thinks I am. Or I am not worthy enough and that's why I'm being rejected. Or I'm not good enough and that's why I'm not being chosen. Or I'm not special enough, I'm not doing enough. That takes us to, that belief pushes us into a place of people pleasing very often, where because we feel like we're not enough, we want to step in a place where we can be more. No, I promise I can do this. Oh no, take me back, I'll do this. And we are taking it to mean something so personal about us. So evaluate in step number two, how am I taking this moment, this conversation, this piece of rejection to mean something too personal about me, and does it actually mean something about me? Next step, and this is where we go deeper into the inner work, so like in the Gauntlet program that we really work on, we investigate with people, where did you first get that idea? But if you're looking at this video and you're looking to work on it on your own, you ask yourself, where did I first get that idea from? Where did I first get that impression that when someone says, I'm sorry, I'm not available for you, or someone doesn't give me love, or someone rejects when I try to give them love, that it hurts so badly? Think about in your childhood where it came from. Very often and most likely it would have come from you attempting to create love with a parent, or attempting to seek love or give love to a parent, and them just cutting it off for whatever reason. Maybe they were too busy, maybe they had their own coping mechanisms, maybe they weren't capable of being emotionally returning to you or emotionally available to you. And so all of those things made you feel in the moment that you're not worthy of love, which is why now at any point someone tries to say, this is not going to work out, if they're shutting down your approaches, it feels so tragic. So step two is to journal and ask yourself, where am I taking this to mean something so personal about me? And where did that come from? Step number three, and this is my favorite. Now this one isn't as deep, but this one is more forward thinking. This one is more optimistic thinking, if you'd like. I'm a strong optimist because I believe that we have more in front of us than we can do with what's behind us, right? So we can do more with what we have and what we can create, but we can't change anything of what's gone behind us. So now, okay, so if we can work with what we have in front of us, how can you take rejection and instead make it to mean redirection? You see? How can you take rejection and focus on how it could actually mean redirection? Now, if you believe in God or you believe in the universe, a lot of people say, put forward, and they say that if someone has rejected you, then God is clearing them out of your lives to make more space and more room for someone else. That's very likely possibly true. But you have to change the belief system so that you don't attract the same individual into your life, right? So that you can actually make that room for the better quality of relationship or whatever that needs to come into your life. But let's talk again about redirection. Now, redirection is simply taking how something which isn't working out the way you want it to. So it's not just that it's not working out. It's not working out the way you want it to. It's taking that aspect and changing it to say, okay, what can I make of it? What can I do with it? My biggest rejection, probably, I've had lots of rejection. My friends actually used to call me the king of rejection because I used to attract so much rejection, but also I kept moving forward. And it was so essential for me in that period of my life because it really, really shaped me as an individual. Nobody has to go through a large amount of rejection. I was just not an expert manifester. I was a resistor. So I kept fighting to prove something, not with people, but I'd fight to prove myself, prove my worth. And that was the worst because it was the least easy way to growth. It was the most resistant way to growth. I always said, give me challenges, give me challenges. However, let's take one massive rejection that happened to me, and that was a huge breakup that happened like maybe 6 years ago, which actually set me on this massive path to where I am today to be able to teach this work to you. So when that rejection happened, it floored me. I was on my fucking ass, and I couldn't do steps 1, 2, or 3. I couldn't see like where it was somebody else's preference or them growing in their own lives and saying they've evolved past the relationship. Didn't see it as that. I took it too personally. Step 2, where did it come from? All the way from like my childhood and all the rejection of love that I wanted that I didn't get. And step 3, redirection. Fuck no. I was on my ass, literally. In fact, I joke about it, but it was so bad that I contemplated like not getting out of bed. I contemplated not living anymore. It was really terrible. But once you give yourself some time, some healing, and some compassion to work through it, and you start accepting and working a little bit more on step 1s and 2s, you also start working on just soothing yourself a little more, grounding yourself a little more, doing some breath work, doing some meditation. Then you step into step 3, which is, how can this mean something really good for me? And let me tell you, that rejection then was the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. And I say it on all my gauntlets when I teach my students. I say it on all my different classes. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Why? It gave me so much of an opportunity to realize that I had this huge dependency on someone, that I was trying to get into a codependent space and make that seem like it was love. I was trying to make my relationship what my wounded identity wanted me to make my relationship. So I was basically living this designed coping mechanism that my ego had figured out, and I was attempting that to make my true relationship, but it could never be. It could never be that, and it could never be true love. And so when the rejection happened, I started to go inwards, and I started to look inwards, and I started to see how to heal, and I started to look at where are the areas in my life that I can grow. And you know what happened? As I focused on that growth, I started to attract relationships and people who were more evolved than my previous relationship, which is magical if you think about it, because it now gives you access to more and more of a quality of love. So the 3 things that I would say to you, the 3 tools, I'm going to summarize them now. Step 1 is to recognize, how is this moment of rejection from this other individual a lot, or even primarily, about their expression of choice, their expression of their own redirection, their expression of changing something else, their expression of chemistry not working, etc. 2, why am I taking it so personally and to make it mean about me? So how can I take it to mean less about me? So this feeds from point 1 into point 2, right? And you discover where it comes from in your life, then you can soothe your inner child a little more, soothe yourself a little more and say, I do know that this meant a lot to me and I put a lot into it, but it doesn't mean the end for me. It doesn't mean that this is going to destroy me. It's actually giving me more of an opportunity to get to know myself better and to heal. And then step number 3, which is the most important aspect when creating like a forward-moving direction, is taking what you've learned from point 1 and 2 and creating redirection. So taking rejection and then saying, how can this now be an opportunity for me to create more for myself? How can this be an opportunity for me to heal? How can this be an opportunity for me to attract better relationships, more love into my life? And if you actually use step number 3, especially with step number 1 and 2, where you're, especially step number 2, you're recognizing where it's come from in your life, then you're actually now giving yourself a really beautiful and powerful chance to create a more healing version of you, a more open version of you, more vulnerable, and not just one that's stuck in your old programs and your dependencies, etc. And ultimately what that will do is that'll attract much better relationships into your life. So not only will you become a better version of yourself and heal more of yourself, but you'll also attract so many better relationships into your life. So that's what I have from Porto Escondido today for you guys. I know rejection is really challenging, it's really tough. Trust me, I've experienced it. But if we want to attract less of it, we have to believe that we deserve less of it and that we deserve more of things that actually align with us and things that actually resonate with us. But we have to know what that is. We have to know who we are and what we're worth, and we have to go through that process of self-discovery. So I love all of you guys. Those are my 3 steps for you to work through rejection. Take care. Love you guys. I'm going to jump in for a quick swim before the sun goes down, and I'll see you guys soon.